I'm going to give you some methods and approaches that you can take back with your own teams, and definitely wrestle with. One of the things that will be done at the end of this session today is all of the attendees will be entered into a raffle for a 90-minute session with me to dig a little bit deeper into this or possibly another topic with your company. So make sure that you have got all of your contact information. If you have any questions with regards to it, you can send that message either in chat or to Stacy to make sure that you're in the queue. And I do look forward to working with one of you at the end of the session today. So I'm going to open this up around vision for a moment. I heard a great story a number of years ago that a leader is somebody who is outstanding in a field. And then the person played it back to me a second time. And he said, a leader is somebody who is outstanding in a field. Another way of saying, how often do you as a leader literally feel like you are standing in a field, like you're standing with nobody else around you? And that is a moment. It's not a fun place always to be a leader, especially when you consider that so many people are looking to you for guidance and direction. One of the things that we're going to be talking about today is, why do leaders stand out? What's the difference between a leader and a team member? How can you effectively work more broadly within your organization to harness the potential and the capabilities of the entire team, so you're not literally just outstanding in a field? Now, here's a great movie clip. Some of you may remember this time. This is Donald Rumsfeld answering the question with regards to some of the intelligence around Iraq. I love this scenario because it kind of paints the picture that I think many leaders may face.
There are reports that there is no evidence of a direct link between Baghdad and some of these terrorist organizations.
There are known knowns. There are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Excuse me, but is this an unknown unknown?
I'm not
several unknowns, and I'm
not going to say which it is.
I love that quote from Donald Rumsfeld because it always sort of rings true in my ears. There's no knowns and the unknown unknowns, and then there's the things that we know that we don't know. And the fact of the matter, in leadership and within the business, there's a lot of this. Now, the downstream ramifications of not knowing, in part, is exactly what he's saying, as confusing as it may sound. The reality is that the more we acknowledge that we don't know, the more that we can acknowledge that our teams and other factors around our business can inform us around the things that we should do, the more successful that we'll find that we'll be. I want to take you through a couple of scenarios for a moment about a concept of blind spots. I was inspired by the book of a good friend of mine, Rich Behrens, who, in partnership with Jim Hawden, wrote this book not too long ago, which is really to sort of surface and present this notion of misconceptions that leaders have. Let's go. It's the right time of the year to be talking about presidents of our country. If we go to the first presidential election and we look at George Washington, there were certainly many inspiring things about Washington and his life. But not a lot of people know exactly how George Washington died. George Washington fell very suddenly ill, and it was the sort of the expertise, and he was 67 years old, by the way, when this happened, and it was the expertise of his doctors that really sort of enshrouds the death of our president more than anything else. And he died, by the way, within a 21-hour period. Now, the doctors, not knowing exactly what the cause of his ailment was, decided to engage in a practice at the time that seemed totally right, but now in retrospect is completely wrong. It turns out that Washington died within 8 hours because he lost 40% of his body's blood. Now, why did he lose that much blood? Well, the practice of the day was bloodletting. Literally, they let the president bleed out, and the thought process was that the infectious blood would reconstitute itself with non-infected blood, And we know now through the modern medicine and science just everything that was wrong in this particular approach. But it sort of surfaces, I think, a really important principle, which is this idea that what may seem logical today, or what may have seemed logical at the time, definitely needs to be challenged and reevaluated. Certainly, as we look at a COVID era and new normals, no matter what part of the business we address, whether we're doing service delivery, integration, events, or otherwise, every aspect of our business is sort of up for grabs. And if it seems logical, it may be a prime candidate for us to reevaluate exactly what it means. Here's another example of a really bad idea, but at the time it was a prevailing thought. How about cocaine tooth drops? That's right. For 15 cents, prepared by Lloyd Manufacturing, we'll sell this to all druggists in 1885. It was an instantaneous cure. And you know what I love about this picture are the little kids off to the left-hand side, just building like Lincoln Logs, using, of course, cocaine tooth drops to take the edge off of the pain in, with their teeth. Pretty crazy. Here's another crazy idea. This is called Vaporol treatment. It contains not more than 40% alcohol, opium, and 3 grains to each fluid ounce. How about that? Let's have some, effectively Vaporol treatment, gas treatment, that is effectively heroin. What a great idea. Now I look at this, this came from National Vaporizer Company. I live here in Michigan, not so close to Kalamazoo, but again, at the time seemed like a great idea. This is for asthma or other spasmodic affections. I think, we're learning a lot. I like this one right here, a bottle of heroin. There you go. From Bayer and Company back in the day. We just didn't know a whole lot, quite frankly, around how to address these major challenges. Here's another sample. How about more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette? Interesting notion, right? Doctors recommending smoking, whereas we know today it looks different. I love this different spin on it. Hey, smoke a fresh cigarette. If you're going to smoke, give your throat a vacation. Go for a fresh cigarette. And I don't think we'd ever think of that quite the same as we do today. How about this idea? For children, for a better life, start cola earlier. How soon is too soon? Well, apparently not soon enough. I think, yeah, look at this child right here, taking down this 7-Up. We've got the youngest customers in the business, right? Really interesting notion. Well, what I'm trying to do here today is to paint the picture of what may seemed like great ideas at the time, or what you've built your business on may be very, very different today. Your business is comprised of people. As a leader, you are a leader of people first, your services and your technology second. Your business is nothing without the people for which it is comprised. And are you prioritizing it the same way? Are you looking at your people as the most important asset within your company? And how do you approach that? So I want to do our first exercise today. Take a little survey. You can write your answers down. You can type them down. I'm going to ask if Stacy would sort of keep track within the chat window of some of your answers. But here's a question. I want you to answer these questions to yourself. And again, if you want to pop it right into the chat window, please do. So, question. And this is when I say we have, I'm asking, do you have, right? So we have a clear vision in writing that's properly communicated and shared with everyone in the company. Yes or no? So go ahead and use the chat. Stacy, I'm going to ask you to sort of monitor this one, how many yeses, how many nos we see. And then we'll do the reality check if everybody's got a yes, right? So let's go to the next question here. Our core values are clear, and we are hiring, reviewing, rewarding, and firing around them. In other words, people know what our values are. I'm not saying they know what our mission is. They know what our values in the business are all about. Question 3. All of the people in our organization are the right people. So not only are they competent people, but they fit our culture and share our values. This is a yes if they're the right because they hit competence and culture, not just competence. So all of our people in our organization are the right people. They fit our culture and share our values. All right, question 4. Our leadership team is open and honest and demonstrates a high level of trust. How high is a high level of trust? I'll let you be the gauge of that, right? Some people may think that their highest level is another person's lowest level. So in the scheme of extending and receiving trust, I'll let you sort of make the call of which one you think is most important. I think this is our last question right here. Our core processes within the business are documented, simplified, and followed by all to consistently produce the results we want. When I'm talking about core processes, I'm not talking about all processes. I'm talking about a few of the most important things are documented and they're simplified such that other people can follow them. I lied. There was one more question. Everyone in the business has at least one number that they are accountable for keeping track of each week. Now, when I say one number, I'm not talking about just sales. I want you to think broadly about what one number is. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but everybody in the business effectively has at least one number that they can say, this is absolutely mine. And there's different ways of defining that one. So let's take a look. How did you do? Stacy, I'm going to invite you to come back and let's kind of go through each question. And you can give some feedback on what we're hearing from our group today. So clear vision, in writing, properly communicated. How do we do?
I am seeing about a mixture. I would say there's more no's than yeses,
Okay.
and for the most part, and it looks like, yeah, the no's really kind of outnumber the yeses.
So Ed, hey, don't lose hope here, right? Because the reality is this is a state of where you want to get to. It's pretty common that things aren't written. Here's the next one. Core values, clear, defined. We hire, we review, we fire around them. How are we looking on that one?
Well, I think people are having a hard time keeping up with what they have, but it does look like some people are no, predominantly no on the core values. No clear values, no vision,
Okay.
some
How
right
about,
people and some right leadership,
yeah,
not
yeah.
the right process is what
We
I'm
got process, we got leadership. Okay, so we're just going to kind of skim these. I think we're getting the theme here pretty well. So, do we have the right people in the organization? Culture fit. Do we have good culture fit? How do we feel around that one?
I'm going to say, I am seeing some yes for the right people.
Good, good. You know, so that's the good news is a lot of times we're surrounded within our business of great people. It's how we adapt and change leadership that becomes important. All right, how about leadership, honesty and trust and processes? I'm just going to sort of just skim across the rest of those. Any other sort of standout commentaries or questions that came from that little quiz?
No, other
All
than the
right.
one who was convinced that they were short on a few things, but had a couple of things in
Great.
place.
Well, it
So,
sounds like that's the one that hopefully we get a chance to talk to at the end of our webinar today. So let's go into reality here for a moment. So if you're following with me, everything starts with leadership. Now, I like this picture because it speaks volumes to me, right? We've got a leader that's making the world look perfect on the left, when in reality, things look like they do on the right. Or maybe it's the other way around. Like we need to paint a new picture because everything around us is already pretty gloomy, right? What I'm trying to tell you is everything starts with the leadership. It's a leadership decision on the direction of the company. As the leaders go, so go the rest. Let me share with you a couple of statistics that I think are important for you to get your head around. The first is, if you didn't know, 90% of employees that currently work for you would be interested in taking another job. 36% are actively looking, statistically speaking, right? So the average person, if you say, hey, how's work going? They say, great. Most of them, 9 out of 10 would say, but I'd take something else if the right thing came along. But almost 4 out of 10, right, approaching 50%, are looking at any given time for their next gig. The engagement equation is real, and it's happening because people are feeling burned out, right? Now, burnout, 46% burnout rate does not imply that there's too much work. It's rare that it's just too much of a volume of work. A lot of times it's a volume of ineffective and useless work. Your organization may be spinning around behaviors and practices that are antiquated, they don't belong anymore, and quite frankly, your business could benefit from a massive dose of simplification. And especially when new initiatives begin. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that say, really from a business standpoint, we've been doing it this way forever and ever. We know we need to change. We initiated a change and it didn't work. And 9 times out of 10, one of the reasons why it didn't work is because the change became too complicated. There were too many aspects within that change that made it pretty difficult. Now, let me just sort of reflect that back a little bit on leadership for a moment. 2 in 5 Americans rank their boss as bad, right? And if you look at the audiences and how they rank, you can see that it doesn't really matter what audience is ranking. This is not people ranking the age of their audience and their performance, but it's the person that's actually ranking their boss no matter their age. And so we see the problem is most pronounced within the Gen X age band, right? They're the most likely it says right here, are the most likely generation to feel negatively towards their supervisor. And why is that the case? Well, a lot of it has to do with the effectiveness of the manager or the effectiveness of the leader. So take a look at this statistic. This was published by HBR, Harvard Business Review, just about a year ago. It says if you're a good boss, you probably work for a good boss. So if you look at what's called the effectiveness score, some of the most effective people, the top 10% of people, quite frankly, that are best bosses have a high level of productivity because they were able to reflect behaviors that they saw within the organization. But take a look at here. Good leaders increase engagement for their employees. So if you look at this red line, what this suggests is a good leader actually drives more engagement. What does that translate into within your business? That burnout effect goes away with higher engagement. It's not about more work. When you have a highly engaged employee, nobody's keeping track of time quite the same way. The most of the time that you're dealing with time issues, like I'm working too hard, a lot of time it's the fact that there's no organization around the work. And because of that, it's creating huge inefficiencies and it's literally stunting your growth. Now, last year, November 2019, almost a year ago, there was an AV executive conference in New Orleans that I attended. And I've been a big fan of AVEC over the years, and I really love this presentation because it really zeroed in on an organization's culture. So check out what it says here. This was the question that she posed. It was a real-time feedback from attendees in the audience. When it comes to our organization culture, A, we walk the walk, or we walk the talk. There is a clear line of sight between what we're trying to achieve and how to do it. B, we're super guarded, elephants in the room, we won't talk about things. Or C, totally toxic. Now take a look at these scores, right? 15%, 35% on the below better than where you would want to be average. That's 50% of the people in the room, 49% to be precise, basically said our culture's broken. And 50%, 51% said our culture's just fine. I would challenge that. As one who observes the AV industry pretty closely, I'm not so sure that we're 100% on the 51%. I would challenge that number substantially. In fact, one of the most significant reasons that organizations cannot grow is because they're dealing with massive cultural dilemmas and they don't know how to address them. Sometimes it's because of legacy in the business. You might have been, you may have been a founder or a multi-generational family. You may be struggling because your entrepreneurial approach is now hitting a scale inflection point where you are having to implement systems and processes that you haven't had before. And in other regards is the external factors of the market, competition, new demands of customers, new demands of competence and technology abilities is forcing you into a new category that you might not have been before. But the cultural implications are massive. And I'm calling these significant blind spots. So why does your vision matter in particular? And why do blind spots matter? Because before you can change anything, you have to change yourself. That has to be the first thing that you're looking at. If you came to the webinar today looking for a magic formula, this is going to be the most foundational piece of it. It's not going to happen because you hire great, competent people in their various skill sets. It's because you're going to hire great, competent people that are also great, competent organizational contributors and understand the culture of the organization and where it's going to, where it needs to go. So here we go to vision. If you ask the question, only 52% of employees can actually say, this is what our company is trying to do. A vision statement is all about what you want to become. This is not some grandiose, pie in the sky type exercise. This is literally a very simplistic way of reflecting what you want to become. It provides effectively the company's direction around the kind of things it needs to do or the kind of culture it should develop so that it attracts the right people, right? This is, in some cases, will be a dilemma for you because you'll be trying to change people within your organization that don't get the vision. More often than not, it falls to the leaders who fail to communicate vision. They fail to communicate where the company's trying to go. And I think a good analysis of this is what not to do initially. And I'm going to show you a couple of bad examples. And then I'm going to show you some opposites of that, like good examples of what a vision statement is and how it can work for you. Don't use jargon words in your vision statement, right? I'm going to show you some examples of that in a moment. Don't use internal measures or profit or market, like profit and market share. A vision statement is not to create a profitable business that owns 20% of the metropolitan market's AV business. That is not a vision statement, right? It's a measure of the success of your vision statement. Your vision statement has to be unique and differentiated, at least in the minds that it makes sense to your individual employees. You can't lack specificity, right? A lot of times vision statements are way too general. Like, we want to go to space. If John F. Kennedy said we want to go to space and wasn't specific, like we will go to the moon before the end of the decade, then we know that that's the difference between an actionable vision, one that we can achieve, and one that's just too generic and too big. Probably the biggest risk with vision is not implementing it. So what happens is you literally spend all this time, you come to the essence of your company, and you fail to actually translate it. Here's one in 2013 from one of my favorite restaurants, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Check out this vision statement. You tell me. Our vision is to sell fast food or food in a fast, friendly environment that appeals to price-conscious, health-minded customers. It's a pretty clear vision statement. Until in 2013, they introduced a sandwich, which was a hamburger that was sandwiched between two pieces of fried chicken. So all of a sudden, that vision statement sort of flew in the face of health-minded consumers. I don't know about the price-conscious aspect, but I'm guessing fried chicken plus hamburger is like two sandwiches in one. I'm not so sure that was easy to produce. But you can see what I mean by your vision has to reflect where you want to be, and it has to be something that actually is you, that actually is something you can do. I'm not going to give you the name of this company, but I'll let you fill in the blank. Blank is in the home improvement business, and our goal is to provide the highest level of service, the broadest selection of products, and the most competitive prices. Interesting. There's some really good things in this vision statement, but there's nothing that gets me excited, right? High level of service, lots of products, most competitive prices. I could strike the word home improvement and I could put AV right in here. Same thing. Undifferentiated, non-inspirational. This is a prime example of what not to do. Here's another example of a tech company. We will shape the future of the internet by creating unprecedented value and opportunity for our customers, employees, investors, and ecosystem partners. Very interesting vision statement. Definitely points to the future. But I would ask the question, does it make sense to include the word investor in your vision, right? Certainly, if that's specifically what you're trying to do, this is actually a very large company that focuses on the value proposition of doing this. And certainly unprecedented value and opportunity, kind of generic, kind of buzzwordy, right? So it misses out on what's important. So what should your mission statement and purpose statement include? Well, it should be big and beautiful, just like this wave and surfer. It should state your role in achieving that big goal. It's going to evolve with time, and it has to be aspirational, something that you can get your arms around. And I think the other part of it is it should be definitely something that points to boosting the morale within the company. Let's take a look at a couple that work. This is Intuit. To improve its customers' financial lives so profoundly, they couldn't imagine going back to the old way. Isn't that a great way of looking into the future, right? And you could take out Intuit here, and you could take out financial here, and this actually works across multiple industries. It's a great example of a big vision. Here's one that I like with Walmart. We save people money so they can live better. This is not broad selection, cheapest prices, great service, blah, blah, blah. This is living your life, right? They're putting the mission of their customers within their own vision and communicate it in a highly effective way. Great airline example. You can do lots of case studies on Southwest Airlines, but check this one out. To provide authentic hospitality, what a great combination of words, by making a difference in the lives of the people we touch every day. So again, goes back to their vision includes what their customers are trying to achieve, not what they're trying to achieve. And authentic hospitality becomes a unique proposition that they can build vision around. So what did you learn from this, right? I want to encourage you to draft your mission statement in 10 words or less. So you can maybe try to do this right now, but I don't want you to miss out on the rest of the content today. But this is an exercise you should do. In fact, you should go back with your team and you should maybe take the last couple of slides that I showed, look at maybe 10 different companies, talk about what you like and what you don't like with different vision statements. You may even look within the industry if you want to get a benchmark of what others are doing, and try to draft yours, and then redraft it to 7 words, and then redraft it to 5 words. If you can get your vision statement to 5 words or less, you will have captured the essence of what the long-term aspiration for the company is. And I'll tell you what happens at 5 words: memorability. When people can remember what it is that you're trying to do, remember that number, how many people can say what the company's vision is? If you walked the halls and asked, nobody can do it today. If you can get 100% of the people saying 5 words or less because you're reinforcing it all the time, you're going to get a lift from it. So Stacy, I'm going to pause for a second and have an opportunity for some questions or some feedback on that. Before I do this, I want to maybe just ask you, Stacy, in your perspective and opinion. We're going to be like on a show here for a second.
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot.
When we talk about in marketing, drafting the essence of a campaign from 10 words to 5 words, is that an easy proposition when we're doing that in marketing?
No, it's a bit of a challenge. I mean, if you have the right base, I think you can easily cut it down, but it's definitely a challenge, and you really have to focus on your target audience, who is your customers. So you want to make sure that all of those words resonate with your customer. So
words matter. Yes.
yes, they do. So
Yeah.
for instance, Herman's vision is helping our integration partners be more successful. So I don't think we've quite got it down to 5, but I think it's
You're really, really close. Yeah, because you could say integration partners are really one word, and you could just call it partners, and there's 6, so
there you go.
you're,
See?
you're right there. You're right there. All right, well, if there's no questions, let's go ahead and continue on. I'm going to sort of exit with this, right? Here is a little piece put together by Lucidity that talks about what vision statements look like organizationally. Automotive industry does it the best. They have 8 words or less, right? Utility companies are the worst, 33 words. Can you imagine trying to say that? But this is a great little snapshot for you to look at it and say, how can I get a lift off of this? The way you get a lift is people remember, and they continue to to reinforce it throughout the business. Okay, let's shift gears and let's talk about values for a moment. So values, when I'm talking about values, let's translate this a little bit. Did you know that 27% of US companies believe in their company's values? This is a Gallup statistic, okay? That means, let's break this down. 1 in 3 of your people believe in what you believe is important, right? That means 2 in 3 are actively working against the value system of your business. That's such a huge disruptive force within your business because, and I'm not saying that you as a business leader and owner have got your values right. The real interest here in understanding this part of it is that if you have values, are you making them count? If your values are worthy of followership, why do so many people not follow? What are they not seeing in leadership that could be a challenge? So I want to break it down like this into a couple of other data points. Employee loyalty, generally speaking, is decreasing. 43% of workers would be willing to leave their company for a 10% salary increase. That's hardly anything. They're leaving because of values and culture. We've already talked about that. Most cultures are decidedly mediocre, right? So less than 1/3 of people believe their company has a culture they can rally around. Leadership teams, 39% of managers strongly agree that management within their own organization is transparent, and 22% of employees feel the same way. You see what's happening here? The higher you go, the more disconnected you are, right? And your managers, if your managers are that disconnected from you, imagine now the individual contributor. Workers need better direction. Half the employees, less than half the employees, feel that their promotion and career path is clear, right? And 44% don't feel that they have sufficient opportunities within their role. The number one factor that predicts performance is the level of support provided by managers, right? Values, right? This is a value play because if the values aren't reflected in the culture and it's not reflective of the people, you're going to find that this is why you're losing people, right? And this is why you're not attracting the best people. So this is not about your ability to pay more. We know that people will shift because of salary, but we also know that they will shift for break even and lose if you've got particularly broken culture and broken internal system. So there's two ways of looking at this. One is the individual value system, and the second is the team value system. So I want you to score yourself 1 to 5. Get ready. We're going to go back to chat here in just a second. And let's take a look at these, right? Which activities bring you satisfaction of whether you receive rewards or recognition? What part of your role inspires you most, right? So without calling out all of your activities, score yourself 1 to 5 on your contribution to your business today. 5 means I'm super engaged, I love it. And 1 means I'm totally disconnected from it and I'm not really inspired by it, okay? Question number 2 is, are there personal habits that you believe that individuals with within your organization need to start, stop, or continue to better align within the goals of the organization? What you're scoring here is, do your people need specific skills to get better aligned with the value system of your business? 5 meaning we got it, or 1 meaning we don't have it. So Stacy, do we have anything coming into the chat window on this particular area? Either 5s or 1s? Are we polarized in terms of how people are looking at this?
We've only got one response right now, and that's Les Hill, and I'm actually going to put him on the spot and see if he gave a 4 to your
Okay.
initial comment. I'm going to let him speak to that maybe. Les, can you speak to us? Uh-oh.
Can you hear me now?
We
Hey
can hear
Les,
you.
how you doing?
Hi. Hey, I'm doing great. I'm loving your presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Les. So you gave yourself a 4.
I would say that, and my colleagues are probably listening also to this, but we had a nice presentation today with our company president. We have values, we have a mission statement, we have these regular town halls, in which we learn what's going on in the company, what the company initiatives are, and how we're progressing against those initiatives. So I would say that we get a high score for involvement, individual involvement.
That's great. That's great. And it sounds to me like you've got great practices in place to help you achieve that. So
I wouldn't
go
go
ahead.
that far.
Okay. So
We have the 19-word mission vision statement though, so
there you go. There you go. So some work required, and it could make the 4 go to a 5, right? To better understand the alignment.
I must say I'm a Virgo, so we're always shooting for 5,
There you go.
whether it's feasible or not. So
Perfect. Perfect. I love that. I love the optimism, and that's another example of a cultural value. Well, thanks, Les. I'm going to keep moving, and I'm going to incorporate some of that into, I think, this next part here, which is reflective of the team. So let's continue on, and here's 2 more questions for you. First one is, how does culture shape how your team manages their goals? Give yourself a 1 to a 5. Question number 2, do any values have unintended consequence on how employees work together? In other words, you've got this value of optimism. We want goaling to be optimistic. Is there a downstream unintended consequence that happens because of that? So let's see if how anybody scored themselves on that one. Stacy, do we have any numbers coming in on the team aspect?
I'm not sure if this is to the previous one or the other of the latest one, but I'm going to have Brian Riley respond about where he thinks his status is here. Just let me find him and get him unmuted.
Awesome. Okay, I'm looking forward to talking to Brian. This right here is really, when you talk about the team, this is where individuals align with the rest of the group.
Hey, Brian.
Hi there. Am I unmuted?
You
Hey,
are
Brian,
unmuted.
we got you. How are you
Yeah,
today?
I think I'm good. Thank you. I think I answered that from a purely individual perspective, and that was the one, previously, the slide previously where the questions were, sort of example is the best way to describe, how I operate. And I hope I didn't misunderstand the question or the context of what you were trying to get across. But that's, I take a lot of pleasure out of course, things going well, clients being satisfied. It's always the what's next, because
Yeah.
you can be satisfied with where you are today, but if you're not embarrassed with who you are, from 12 months ago, then you're not looking at yourself, you're not doing self-reflection. So, constantly trying to improve
Awesome.
myself, constantly, I'm probably my best evaluator, but I always look for criticism first and praise second.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you the follow-on question, which is right here. What I'm sensing here is your culture has a strong culture of learning and improvement. That's hugely valuable, top down. Does that have any unintended consequences, not bad, but good or bad, downstream within your organization? Do you have any consequences that have maybe reared their head because of that? Because you are a learning organization, you're a learning leader.
Well, I would say that the people in the field, understand my desire for quality work, and because I'm producing it, they feel like they should, up their game and get to the same level. So I am seeing
Perfect.
some cooperation where at times there may have been apprehension to do certain things or to, perform a certain way because of a variety of factors. So the quick answer is, again, individually, I believe that what I'm doing is producing a good effect downstream from where I am, and
Yep.
ultimately, the clients are the ones that are going to benefit from that.
That's great. That's great. And I would say, just that set the tone and set the objective for the team example that you just outlined there is having a huge ramification around your people. They want to be more like you, right? And I think that that's a great example of culture in action. So good for you. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let me jump forward on this idea. So 55% of Fortune 100 companies say integrity is a core value. Interesting. 49% say Fortune 100 say that customer sat is a core value. What am I getting at here? Here's another data point. 40% espouse teamwork is a core value. The question is, can you differentiate your business on a value you've identified? Just like we heard Brian talk about, he's differentiating always learning organization as a core value. He differentiates it in the way that the walk he's walking, right? Which makes a ton of sense. But a lot of companies are using the exact same words that you are. So my point here is you got to find a way to lift your values and make them mean something for your business. And I want you, as an exercise, to list your company's values on a piece of paper. And this may be, again, an exercise you may do back with your team. And then what I want you to do is, when you do the values, I want you to create one-word lists. So what I mean by that is, like in Brian, I would say learners, right? And in the other example, I might say visionaries, right? So as you list these values down the road, you want to go through the exercise of sort of putting everything on the paper. One of the exercises that may help you do this is to identify employees within the company that are great. The ones that are the backbone of the environment. Like when you think of greatness in your company, Johnny or Susie's name comes to mind, and there's something they do, right? And so within this list, what I want you to do is to break up these words into one of these three categories. This comes from an article called Make Your Values Mean Something by Patrick Lencioni. And he talks about one of these three categories. Values fall into either the accidental category, the aspirational category, or the permission to play. Let me explain. Accidental is all about this idea that this value has always been around, right? So in other words, we don't have to say we're customer focused because we've always been customer focused, right? And it's not like something we learned along the way, right? And our customer centricity and the way we treat customers may truly be unique, right? Another example of this is aspirational, which means that, hey, we don't really have this value today. We really need this value, but we don't have it right now. This may be, I know I've seen this in the AV industry in particular, is the desire to be more innovative and come to market and be more relevant to their customers in the innovation of the things that they can do, right? And the third one is this notion of what's called permission to play. What permission to play refers to is everybody can say the same thing. Everybody's got this, right? In other words, you can't differentiate on it. For example, we're a people business. Well, guess what? Everybody's a people business, not a value, right? What you're trying to do is to identify the intersection of the accidental and the aspiration. You don't downplay the permission to plays. They are definitely important, but you want them to go to work for you, right? Especially in the accidental and aspirational category. That's what's going to differentiate your business. Let me tell you a quick story. Hyatt has had a long storied history of customer service, and they could very easily say, hey, our one of our values is outstanding customer service. They are a hospitality customer after all, so it's important that they get it right. So on their website, you can go do your own research on them. They talk about putting our purpose into action. There's a story of a Hyatt agent that was given a benefit a few years ago of what was called the Make It Right Fund. What they found was when people came to a hotel and something wasn't right, either the reservation was wrong or or whatever it happened to be, that the agent had the ability up to $2,000 in a 1-month period to make an adjustment for a customer on the fly without having to ask for permission. So that could be everything from hey, here's a free breakfast voucher, or here's a free local show tickets, thanks for your patience with us, or whatever it happened to be. But the agent was allowed to decide. So at the front desk, that person made the call. They had up to $2,000 a month to do it. And in some cases, they didn't spend it at all. Well, this story was legendary. That one time a person left their briefcase in the hotel, took off to go to their next destination, which was literally 5, 6, 7 time zones away, and called back to the hotel and said, hey, I left my briefcase behind. And the hotel agent says, yep, we've got it right here. And he goes, man, I could really use that briefcase tomorrow. And they're starting to think through how they're going to do the Delta Dash overnight delivery. And it come to find out that they'd even missed that window. So you know what this agent did? Literally, it was her day off the next day. She went and purchased a plane ticket to fly and hand deliver this briefcase to the customer. And it was within that $2,000 range. She hadn't expended the entire fund, but she made the call. She did it. She delivered it and she went back. It was like a 48-hour trip, whatever it happened to be. But it was an example of incredible customer service and a value in action. So let's move on to the next topic because we're coming to the top of the hour here. Let's talk about organizational structures for a moment. Organizational structures can always be a little sticky because a lot of times our organizational structures aren't clean like you're seeing right here. And how many of you have just dealt with the ambiguity and lack of clarity of what your organization looks like, right? A lot of times, some of the challenges with organizational structure are these. Systems and structures fail because they weren't built right? They weren't built to scale. So when you get to a growth equation where you start hitting your head on the ceiling, it's because the organizational structure is fundamentally flawed from the start. Number two, there's not enough focus around the financials, right? So in other words, there's a lack of discipline on where things are going and how they're progressing. Number three, customer and marketing failure, meaning the message isn't landing properly. Or this fourth concept, which is leadership, particularly from the top to the bottom of the organization. So here's a quiz for you. I want you to score your own numbers here. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to make this one more of a rhetorical. But question number one, we have an organizational chart that describes the work and reporting structures, yes or no? You can put it in the chat. I'm going to ping Stacy here in a second. Question number two, our organization chart is easy to understand. Question number three, everyone in our organization is in the right seat. Question number four, our leadership team is open, honest, and demonstrates high level of trust. That was from before. So these are yes or no's. Question number five, everyone in the organization has at least one number that they are accountable for and are keeping track of each week. Yes or a no? Stacy, let's just get a quick report from you. Are we getting yeses or no's from our group today on these 5 questions?
We got yeses perhaps to the first one, but as you went down the list, we got more no's.
Okay.
and a few question marks. So
And a few question marks, exactly. Well, so let's talk about this for a second. An organization can really be simplified looking like this. Now, there is a methodology I subscribe to. You can read a lot more about it. It's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. You can read the book on the Entrepreneurial Operating System by its founder, Gino Wickman, and he talks about the EOS methodology really being comprised of these primary functions. One, you got to have an engine for sales and marketing. Two, there has to be some operational aspect of leading the business. And three, finance, like how you keep track of the money. The next 2 roles have to do with how these are brought together. The role of the integrator is an individual who brings together the operational, financial, and sales and marketing aspects of the business. That may be the president of the business. It may be a chief operations officer. It may be just a director of business. I've seen some people literally call it the business integrator, right? So this is a key role because what it does is it creates separation for the visionary. The visionary is one who has the big idea, the perspective of where revenue will be derived, what customers will serve, and how will align within the business. Sometimes the visionary and the integrator are the same person. More often than not, the visionary needs to step back and let the integrator be the integrator for the business. I see this especially with founders. So founders were the integrator and they were sales, marketing, ops, and finance for the most part all along, right? But then they get to a point where they can't scale it. So they step into a different role at each financial opportunity growth into the future. So creating the space for the visionary to truly be the visionary and the business not to skip a beat in that process is a critical step in this. Now, this is where we get to what I call the accountability structure of the business. Everybody's got a number, right? What's a finance person's number? You know, the finance person's number in my mind is a finance team or leader's ability to say, here is the company's income statement on a periodic interval, or this is the cash flow situation within our business. Operations may be number of projects delivered this week at X profit, right? Sales and marketing, very straightforward. Here's the deals that we've closed. So everybody in the business can own a number and be accountable for something. What we find a lot of times is as we look throughout the organization, there's a lack of accountability because there's a lack of organizational clarity. You have to get clarity to drive accountability. And so the exercise of laying your business out into a very clearly defined structure will reap huge, huge benefits for you. And somebody will know ultimately what they're accountable for, right down to the receptionist in your office. And that's post-COVID. Well, you know, I've seen some data points include everything like, you take McDonald's, for example. You go through the drive-through. If they don't say, how can I make your day great, or something like that, that is an example of how many times did I say that today. It's a metric. It's a number. I'm accountable for it. Let me transition into the last concept here before I wrap today. This is alignment. If you take all of the topics that I've been talking about today, they all come down to really this principle, that people, generally speaking, don't feel aligned to the strategy and the efforts of their business. Only 10% of people get it, right? 40% of managers get it. They get what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. If I take a page out of the EOS methodology, they talk about these three principles. The first is a person gets it. They understand what the business needs to do. They want it. They want to be a part of what the business is trying to do. And they have capacity for it. In other words, they have the ability to succeed in the role. When we look at performance, we start to look at everything a little bit differently within an accountable structure. I may say for myself, I get it, that's a plus, but I don't want it, that's a minus. And I have the capacity to succeed. Because there's a preponderance of pluses, I can question the minus and say, I'm in the right seat, right? But if I come across, let's say, doesn't want it, or I'm sorry, wants it, but doesn't get it and doesn't have capacity for it, then that probably is a suggestion that you need to make a change within your organizational structure. Now, I want you to score you in your current role. So this will be by yourself. You can pop it into the chat if you'd like, but are you a plus or a minus in gets it, wants it, capacity for it? Do you get it, right? Plus or minus. Do you want what the business is trying to do and what your role is trying to deliver? And then third, do you have capacity to succeed in that, plus or minus? Take a look at your score. Now I want you to take your direct reports and I want you to do the same exercise. And so I want you to look at your organization and make a determination of whether or not you are surrounded by people who get it, want it, and have capacity for it. It's a great exercise, a page that you can take right out of the EOS model. Now, I'm going to summarize today. We're about to the top of the hour. Hey, don't bloodlet. It's a bad idea. Watch for your blind spot. Vision matters. It's very important. When it comes to people, don't and values within your business, make sure that you focus on making your values count. From an organizational structure, take the time to figure out if you've got the right people in the right seat because they get it, they want it, and they have capacity for it. And lastly but not least is alignment matters. You can't get alignment if you don't have the foundational aspects of driving alignment. I want to leave you with this video. It's one of my favorites. It was done by EDS a bunch of years ago, and it talks about the fact that, hey man, nobody's perfect.
Some people like to climb mountains. I like to build planes in the air. You're going to be on a plane, wanting to be at this high. 60 below. It's crisp, it's refreshing. You never know what you're going to come across up there. A&D, Howard, Owls, these people back there, that's why I come to work. That's why I throw airplanes in the sky.
We're having a bit of a hard time hearing that actually this time around.
So I want to thank you for your time today. I love to think, hey man, we're building planes as we're flying them. So it's not about perfection. It's really about the journey and where you're trying to go. So thank you for your time. Here's how you can reach out to me if you want to talk a little further. And I'm looking forward to working with one of you today. Stacy, I'll kick it back to you.
All right. We probably could take a few quick questions if anybody has a quick question, but I do want to make sure everyone knows we'd like to thank Kramer, our sponsor today, and one of our good manufacturing partners. We appreciate you all being here. We enjoy Jeff being here. And let me remind you that we have 2 other sessions coming up. If you want to join us, one is Goals, Rocks, and Actions, and Execution Rhythm. And then the third one is Value Propositions and Business Storytelling. Again, we will pick a winner from today's participants to get a one-on-one with Jeff, and a winner for each one of those sessions. So we hope you come back and join us. And is there any questions? I'm gonna, if you want to raise, I'm gonna just take off the mute, and if you have a question, you can jump in, and hopefully not everyone will jump in at once. Maybe. Can anybody have a question? I hear a few people.
We hear some clicking in the background.
Nope. All right. We did get a thank you and an excellent content. And I certainly want to recommend that. Appreciate the info. Will the recording be available? So guys, what I do is I actually take the content and post it on our blog. And what I'll do is I'll follow up with all of you and send you a link to that blog so that you can play the content. That should be available probably tomorrow. All right. Everybody wants the link, so that's good news.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you joining us, and hopefully we will see you for our next webinar, which is on November 12th at 2 o'clock.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, November 12th.
All right. Thanks, gang. All right. Jeff, maybe I can just call you and we can download.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. All right.
Perfect.
All right. Talk to you in a bit. Bye-bye.